Dr. Henry, how large is the concern that there has been spread of the variant in the school setting? And with this concern, not knowing if there was spread, is the province providing any additional restrictions or rules within schools around first overall testing and masks as well?
Yeah, so we have been, as you know, doing surveillance for these variants of concern for some time, and we've been targeting school-age children, and so far none of the tests on anybody who's in the school system have turned up positive. So the initiative we're doing today at the Garibaldi School was because one person who was in the school did have a positive COVID test and was a contact of somebody who had a variant. So we're obviously going back and testing them as well, but we want to make sure that there's no other spread in the school. So that's the reason we're doing this. And as we learned in the use of the rapid tests in the correctional facilities, for example, they are helpful in giving us a sense of what's going on, but they're not accurate enough on their own. So we're doing both testing with the rapid test and the PCR test, although for these mostly young people, we are going to do the spit and gargle so they don't have to have 2 nasopharyngeal swabs. So we know that transmission is very uncommon in our schools, and we have been working with the school communities, and I've said a number of times, Dr. Reka Gustafson, who works in my office, has been the lead on that for the last few months, pulling together what we know and revising and updating the guidance. And yes, there will be more about that in the coming days. I do think it's important to enforce the mask wearing that we have in the school setting, and particularly in light of variants that we're seeing in our community. Thankfully right now in small numbers, but this is a period of time where we're still trying to figure out what it means and how it's spreading across Canada and across BC.
Yes, and you mentioned this topic earlier, of course, but regarding the possible exposure to one of the variants at a high school in Maple Ridge, do you plan to add more protocols to schools like rapid testing or mandatory mask policy within the classrooms? If not, why not? And can we also get that in French, please?
So I think if you look at the safety plans for schools, masks are one part of it, and there are many different parts that reduce the risk of transmission and reduce the risk of widespread transmission in schools. And so masks absolutely are part of that. And as I mentioned, Dr. Reka Gustafson has been working with the school team to look at where things are working and where things aren't working, and there'll be more information about that later this week. But masks have always been a part of, but not the only safety factor in schools. In terms of testing, today will give us a good example. We do testing of people who have symptoms in schools, in the school setting, and we make sure that children with specific symptoms have testing, but also the adults in the school system need to be tested if they have any symptoms at all. Whether rapid testing in schools is of value is something that people have been looking at across the country. It certainly makes a difference when you don't have to use a nasopharyngeal swab, although I will say the nasal swabs that have recently been approved by Health Canada finally are not yet available here, but we'll be looking for those as well. And of course, we can't use the spit and gargle test with the rapid test. So it's a little bit of a dilemma, but we also know that the rates of COVID in school-age children are very low, and they continue to be very low despite all of our testing. So it's not an environment where that would be where rapid testing would be the first choice in terms of an environment where it might be useful. It depends. It's useful for helping us detect if there's outbreak and transmissions when we think there's been a potential exposure, but routine testing with rapid tests is probably not something that would be valid in a school setting, and not the highest priority for sure.